Did Vikings carve the Heavener Runestones? In 1913, a runestone was discovered just outside of Heavener, Oklahoma, causing a lot of excitement. Carl F. Kimmerer found the stone in 1913. At first, he suspected that Indians had carved the stone. He sent a copy of the inscription to the Smithsonian in 1923. They reported back that the runes, carved on the 12 feet high by 10 feet wide stone, were likely runes carved by Scandinavians. The buzz was palpable. Did Vikings, who waged raids on other countries and instilled terror in the hearts of thousands, really land in Oklahoma? Did they claim the Watchtown Mountains as their own centuries ago? And if so, how did they get here? Theories abounded. Many suggested they could have traveled through the Gulf of Mexico, now called the Gulf of America, up the Mississippi River, over onto the Arkansas, and into eastern Oklahoma. It was a thrilling prospect. Imagine real Vikings in Oklahoma. But nobody could figure out what the runes meant. And nobody could prove the Heavener runes really were carved by Vikings. Archaeology to the rescue. Archaeologist Lyle Thompson studied not only the Heavener runestone, but other runestones found in Oklahoma. He authored a paper entitled, "An Archaeologist Examines Oklahoma Runestone." What was his finding? Yes, the runestone in Heavener was real. Yes, the runestone was likely carved by a Scandinavian. But was it carved by a Viking who traveled by ship all the way from Norway to Oklahoma? Probably not. It hurts to say that. I wanted to believe that there was a Viking who traveled to Oklahoma back in the 10th century. I really liked the idea of a Viking traveling all this way, claiming the Watchtown Mountains from Norway and then winding his way back to Norway. I provided the link below in case you want a little light reading later. Anyway, here are 4 reasons the Heavener runestones are genuine and were carved by a Scandinavian, just not by Vikings in the 10th century. Reason number 1, the Vikings never got further than the northeast corner of North America. Sad, but true. Mind you, it would be possible to sail from Norway to Oklahoma, but we're talking about a trip that's between 3,500 miles and 4,000 miles on an old Viking ship. Granted, the French traveled that far in the 17th century, and the Spanish clocked some pretty impressive miles in the 16th century. But they had better ships. Also, if the Norse traveled that far, they would have had to stay with locals along the way, and not just for an overnight visit. They would have stayed for a while, and probably shared their artistry skills. They probably would have learned the locals' language and then said something like, "Hey, have you ever thought about painting a bowl this way?" And the locals probably would have adapted that into their own art. We know this because that's what happened with the Inuits, whom the Vikings absolutely did visit. And keep in mind that the mound builders lived near the Spiral Mounds at that time, between 500 AD and 1500 AD. They were only 40 kilometers away. No doubt if a Viking ship was along the Arkansas River, one of the mound builders would have noticed, and Norse influence would have shown up in the mound builders' art. But there's no evidence of that happening. No paintings of a Viking ship? Nothing. Number 2, a huge Viking revival was going on in the 1800s. Before the 1800s, Vikings got a bad rap, especially in the Middle Ages, and they deserved it thoroughly. They weren't the nicest people to other parts of the world. They invaded Great Britain starting in AD 793 and continued attacking them for 2 centuries. They did the same to Scotland, Ireland, France, and Spain. They even attacked the Russians. Vikings were not popular people. But starting in the 1800s, there was a Viking Renaissance. Vikings were being regarded as mystical warriors and romantic heroes. I equate this today with the young people's use of the word sick, meaning something good. Anyway, the age of Romanticism was going on in the 1800s. People rediscovered Old Norse literature. They became obsessed with Vikings, and they likely took up writing runes again. So why do I bring this up? Because number 3, a huge swarm of immigrants started coming over from Scandinavia to North America. They came to the United States full of hope for a better life and brought with them their love of everything Viking. Which brings me to point number 4. In the 1800s, the railroads were expanding all over North America. The Missouri, Kansas, and Texas Railroad was completed around 1873. To get that rail line finished, the railroad company needed lots and lots of immigrants to do the job. They hired thousands of men from Scandinavia. According to one estimate, 1 million people immigrated from Sweden to the United States during the 1800s. And a good share of those moved to Heavener, Oklahoma. Why? Because Heavener was an important railway system. The railway company built a station in Heavener in 1896. By 1910, a roundhouse was established to turn around the locomotives and service them. In 1900, 230 people lived in Heavener. By 1920, the population had grown to 1,850. It's a good bet that a few of them were Swedes. And when those Swedes slipped in, they likely brought with them their passion for all things Viking. So, while the Heavener Runestones could be a forgery, Thompson argues they're probably real. After all, the runes were carved on a stone by a Scandinavian, just not a Viking in the 10th century. The person who carved the runes on the runestone might not have been a Viking, but he very likely was descended from one. He may have been proud of his heritage and carved the stone to use as a boundary marker. He wanted everyone to know that a Norseman lived in these parts. Or maybe he was playing a joke on us all. Thank you for watching Okie Lore. I'm Sue Merriam. If you enjoyed this video, click the like button, subscribe if you haven't, and click the notification bell so you won't miss a single episode. And I'll see you in the next one.